Hi everyone, I'm Mandy from Empty Nest Designs. Excuse my chair squeaking while I sit down. In this video I'm going to show you how to create a table decoration that can be multifunctional depending on how you decorate it, and I'll have a few examples to show you at the end of the video as well to show you what I mean. But this particular one I'm going to make is for the festive period. So if you have people round for Christmas dinner, this is a lovely way to decorate the table and to have place settings and all that. Okay, so going to be using Full Bloom stamp set and Textures 2 stamp set. I'll be using a few different inks, including Distress Oxide in Lucky Clover and Cracked Pistachio. Also be using Versamark, Onyx Black Versafine, an anti-static bag. I should be using the Wow embossing powder in Metallic Gold Rich Superfine. Some tools, so a scoring tool and some scissors. Going to be using cardstock in some craft, some white, black, and I've got this bit here to show you, this is where we're aiming for, but I'm going to show you how I got there as well. So, move those to the side. Also going to be using a stamping mat a little bit later on. Some adhesive and some water for the oxides. Okay, so let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to do is tell you that there's a few measurements coming now. I will pop them all on my social media so that you can have a look at the still image of the finished project, and we'll have the written measurements as well. They're not, there's a few of them, but they're really simple. It's just chunks of mostly 5 centimeters. There's a few other ones, but mostly 5 centimeters, and that's how we're going to start. So we're going to go on my scoreboard. This one is the Ultimate. If you have that, you'll know that I'm using the centimeter side, and I'm on the left hand side is the box base. That makes no difference at all to the project. I'm just letting you know because I'm working right to left because I'm left-handed. So I'm going to take my score tool and I'm going to put it in the 5 centimeter. And I'm going to give that, and this is nice thick cardstock, so I'm going to give that a second press. Then I'm going to go into the 10, so 10 centimeters. Then I'm going to go into the 15. And then just because my 20 is really off to the edge, all I'm going to do is I'm going to lift it up and I'm going to move what was the 15 into the 10, making sure that the 5 sits nicely as well. So I've got both channels sitting in their corresponding dips on the scoreboard. And then I'm going to go to the 15 again, which in theory is 20 centimeters. And then I'm going to add on 1.5 centimeters at this point. So make sure that that didn't jump out. It looked like it did a little bit. No, I just moved it afterwards. Okay, and then so on the 15, which means from right to left, this is 20 centimeters in total. I'm going to add on another 1.5 centimeters, just so I've got a nice tab to stick on, or sorry, to stick it all together when we come to put it together later. So this chunk up here, not going to be using that, so we're going to chop that off in a minute. But we're going to turn it, and we're going to work, again, I'm working right to left because I'm left-handed. And we're going to go again in the 5 centimeter. So making sure it's all buttered up nicely in the 5 centimeter, just up to where we need. In the 10 centimeter, pressing quite firmly because it's thick cardstock. Again, just up to where we need. Then we're going to go in the 12.5, the 15, and then the final one in the 18. So I'll just run through those again real quick. So 5, 10, 12.5, 15, and 18. And so this part here and this part here, I'm going to chop away because we don't need. And that is it for the scoreboard as well. So I'm just going to move that out the way now. Bring my guillotine and chop off the bits that we do not need. So just lining it all up nice and neat. And remembering to take the smaller piece off of the end, not the big 5 centimeter squares, because you need that. If that sounds like I've chopped the wrong piece off, not with this particular project, but I definitely have done in the past. Okay, so now we're going to do some snipping. Let me just grab my scissors. I think I want the bigger ones for this. Okay, so making sure that you're working on the bottom piece, which is the block, the 5 centimeter square. We're going to leave one piece square. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, the tab that we added, the 1.5 centimeter tab that we added. I'm going to chop that up straight, following along the channel, and then just take a little V off of the next square up. So this is what we're doing so far. Okay, and then again I'm going to follow the line, the channel line straight up, because I want this to be square, but this is the only one that will be square. So moving across, all I'm doing is I'm cutting up to that first channel line that I'm hoping you can see, and then I'm going to take a small triangle and meet at the top there where we just cut up to on the straight line. So just do that, there we go. And then on this one I'm going to take a triangle from both sides, going to the cross point of the line for the where the next block starts, going up the box at that point. And I'm going to repeat this step on this one. So again, taking out a triangle, and then finally a smaller a triangle just on this one side. Okay, I'm going to swap my scissors over because the next bit I don't need the big ones for, and all I'm going to do is start folding along the score lines, because it's easier to fold it before you start cutting it anymore. So I'm just going to fold this over. Just fold it and crease nice and firmly along all the score lines. Okay, and then we're going to do this side as well. So just trying to remember the best way to do this now, because I want the bottom in. So we're just going to fold this up. Okay, so as you can see, it's going to be positioned like so, creating a box. Now on this one, we're going to take what is the outside, and the part where we scored, so we did 5, 10, and then we did the 12.5. We're going to take the 12.5 fold and we're going to score that so that we're folding it the wrong way round. Hopefully I've done that the right way. And then turning it back over so that we're now looking at what will be the inside of the box, score the remaining lines. Hopefully that isn't too confusing. I'll show you exactly what I mean once I'm done, so that it's easy to just show you, I guess, than tell you. So we've scored it all the way round and we've scored it all the way down, and all it is you've got like a valley section. This part, hold like so and flip it over. So that will be what you've got there. But the reason this part is important is we're going to cut most of this away. We're going to use just, you don't have to measure, but where the cross section is, so where the score lines are, that's where you're going to cut up to. So leaving on this part a very narrow piece of cards, we're going to cut out large diamonds. So I'm just going to do it so you can see what I mean exactly. Okay, oh, I didn't cut that one very well. Just cut that again. There we go. And then again, up to the cross section where all the score parts meet. I may have to go over this and take away more. It is just something that I've been doing by eye. this kind of resembles a cracker once it's done. So, you know, if you have a cracker die, then it'll be a bit easier, but I don't. So I'm just doing the measurements. So again, snipping, cutting away. You do need to leave fairly narrow sections. So I might actually take a little bit more out of this one. And then from the end just up to the edge at the corner there where you've done it, and the same on this side, remembering to leave a nice narrow section going up to where the cross point is from all the scores. And then instead of creating the diamond, we're just going to go along where we've scored and just snip it off. Okay, so let me show you what I mean. So when you open it, you have narrow parts here. So I am going to just re-snip a couple of those because some of them are a little too wide. All it is if you don't cut them, if you cut them too wide, then when you come to close it, it doesn't sit as flush as it can. So just take away a little bit more, and it should be fine. I think that one could do with a bit more there. And so this is all just by eye. Maybe a smidge more off of there, because that's, you know, a technical measurement, a smidge. All right, so let me get rid of some of this rubbish. Just grab my bin. Okay, so this is what we have so far. We have the 5 and the 5. So 5, 10, 12 and a half, 15, and then 18. So there's a couple more snips left to do, and that is just to make little triangles out of the tab pieces. So one there and one there. I know I've made that seem really complicated, but honestly it isn't. It's just a few centimetre measurements, some scoring and some snipping. And ultimately this is the shape that it's going to create. So just folding up the tabs at the bottom. The reason you leave one completely square is because when you put it together, it covers the base lovely and gives you a nice neat finish. So that one you have to make sure is on the outside, obviously, and then that will sit like so there. So that's the shape that we're going for. And see what I mean, how if you don't cut a lot away, you've got a big gap. You haven't got a big gap there. If you don't cut much away, it'll be bigger and bigger and bigger. Okay, so for now, that is all we're going to do with that until we come to decorate it. So the next step I'm going to do is show you how we got to this point. So I'm going to move this out the way. Hopefully I won't panic when I don't see that to the side of me a little later, and I'll remember I've just put it down towards the floor. Okay, so this is where the white cardstock comes into play. We're going to take the Distress Oxide and we're going to do a little bit of Lucky Clover and some cracked pistachio. Probably a bit more Lucky Clover. And then we will spritz that. And then we're just going to kind of just splodge it around a little bit, get the two colours to merge, pick it up, and oh, that's lovely. That's really nice. This is actually nicer than the one I prepared earlier on. So just get that all across there. Just take some of that off and it gives a really nice swirly pattern. I've got an eyelash on there. All right, so we dry this. So excuse my heat gun. When you're using Distress Oxides, always dry in between applying the next layer, because otherwise it just goes a bit mushy. It doesn't need to be completely dry. There's 3 completelys there. Oh. It doesn't need to be 100% dry. There you go. And just pick up a little bit of the detailing. So a little bit more there. Okay, and then dry that off again. If you haven't tried Distress Oxides before, I can't recommend them enough. They are absolutely amazing. Okay, So I'm going to leave that there, because this is one that I did earlier that is absolutely dry. And as you can see, you don't tend to get two the same, even if you're using similar colours, you don't tend to get two the same. I think I might have used a little bit of Twisted Citron in this one as well, that's why there's some lighter bits. I'm going to move this to dry over to one side. I'm going to quickly clean up my workspace. I wouldn't normally waste all that oxide. I would pick it up with the tag I'm currently loading with all the wasted oxides. Let me show you. It's got nothing to do with what I'm doing, but it's really looking lovely. Hopefully you can see that all right. There's lots of different colours on there, and it's just something I've got going off to one side that I'm just building up slowly. Okay, so let's pretend that this is the whole sheet and that it's completely dry. The next step is to bring in my stamping mat and a piece of scrap paper and the anti-static pad. So I'm just going to run that across the bottom here, and I'm going to grab the stars from Texture 2. I'm going to use my my Versamark, my watermark stamp, and I'm just going to ink up some of the stars. I don't need to cover the whole thing because I'm just going to use a section off to the bottom. So I'm just going to do that, ink it again, trying to see where I've been already, do that. It takes two more to get the whole way across, trying not to overlap. But for some reason I can't actually see the stamps this time. Normally I can see exactly where I've placed them. Okay, and then this is where the Wow embossing powder comes in. Let me just dust that off because it's got the anti-static on it. Putting on far more than I need, but as you know, well, I'm assuming you know, that you only retain what you're using on the with the sticky ink. So as you can see, I missed a bit. I must have turned it around as I was stamping, but that's absolutely fine because I'm just going to show you this quickly, and I have already done this step already. So I'm just going to let the heat gun warm up a little bit longer. So impatient. All right, that should do. And then hopefully you'll get a nice view of when the embossing powder turns from the powder to the gold shine finish. Hopefully you can see that there okay. As soon as it turns, move on. And there we go. Okay, so I can see that I have missed a bit there, but I'm not too fussed because, as I said, I've already done this step ahead. I just wanted to show you how I've got to where we're going with this. So hopefully you can see how shiny that is. I do know I have missed some bits. I'm going to put that to one side and tidy up this. So one thing I'm going to mention now is that the way I just showed you how to create the background, I have done that in another colour already to save some time because I figured you don't want to see me creating multiple backgrounds. So I've already done that and created this red. And that is now where the next stamp comes from, and this is the smallest leaf from Full Bloom of this particular design. There are two designs of leaves on Full Bloom. Let me just grab that out to show you. As you can see, we have the more modern take and the almost, I refer to it as the rose leaf. I know it's not, but that's just in my mind how I see it, and I've taken the smallest one, which is this size. So all I'm going to do now is, using the black onyx, stamp the leaf onto the red, like so. And again, this is a step I have already gone ahead and done because I figured you don't want to see me stamping and cutting all of these out. But there's the stamp, and I will cut one out for you just to show you how nice and quick and easy you can cut them out. And I did the same with a green as well. So although I created a green, I did another green because these leaves are actually going to be turned into a poinsettia, which is, you know, the flower associated with the festive season. I think that's fairly worldwide as well. I'm in the UK and it's definitely one that we use here. And as you can see, that was really quick and easy to cut out. I did that 7 times, so I cut 7 out in total and 3 in green. So let me just grab this so I can show you where I'm at. Don't need that just yet. Don't need that just yet. Don't need that just yet. But here we go. So this is what I've gone ahead and done. So I've got a couple or 3 in green and then 7 in the red. I'm going to move that one because that one's too light for me. I've used a darker section on this already. Okay, so that is going to turn into the poinsettia. So for now, I'm just going to pop those back into the little pot I have at the side of me. And we're going to move on to the next step. The next step being cutting down the mats and layers we need for this. So I'm going to bring this back in now. Now this is just by eye, honestly. I'm just going to line this up, making sure that I've got a nice little bit of framing of the craft cards. And then I'm going to put a snip where I want to cut it so that it's got a frame all the way around it. So there's a snip there. Turn it round, making sure it's still nice and straight, and pop a little snip there, just so I've got a guide as to where I'm cutting it. I will do the same for the top section here, but let's just focus on the bottom for now. Bringing in the guillotine again. Using my little snips as a guide, making sure that it's sitting nice and straight, holding it firmly in place and chopping that off. Then, again, using the snip as a guide, putting the majority of the card through and using it as a guide so I can see where I'm going to be measuring to cut the rest. So I can see that for me, this is just before my 2-inch. It's kind of sort of halfway in between this grid mark here and this one here. So that's all I'm going to do, is just use that as a reference guide. And I need 4 of those because there's 4 sides to the box that we're creating. I'm going to call it a cracker box because that's kind of what I had in mind. But as you'll see at the end, there is it doesn't have to just be a cracker box. It can be an any occasion box. Okay, so that's the 4 for that particular layer. And then we will do the same with the piece of green that we've embossed the gold stars onto. So all I would do is exactly what I just did. So leaving a frame around the edge, put a snip. Oh, I moved that. Put that where I want it. Put a snip where I'm going to cut it. Here, turn it round, snip there, and cut it down exactly the same as I have just done with the black. So again, I'm not going to do that because I literally just did it with the black. It's exactly the same. Give it a frame, snip it where you're going to cut it, and then chop it all down. So let me move that to the side. It's not that I don't want to show you all these steps, but because there are a few steps in this, I don't want to do the repeat thing. There's no point in me cutting down the green cards when you've just seen me do the black. Okay, so, and the principle is exactly the same for the top section here. Line it up, give yourself a frame, put a snip and a snip, cut it down, and the top piece of this has no stars on, and it would be a case of just matting and layering exactly as you have done with that, and that will give you, when it's stuck together, something that looks a little bit like this. So there's the gold stars, and those will be lined up across these panels, and I recommend that you stick them down before you put your cracker box together. So you line them up exactly where you want them, stick them all down first. Okay, so let me move this to one side and let me bring in the one that I have already gone ahead on. So this is what you're aiming for. Simple as that. There was one step that I forgot to tell you about when it comes to snipping on the other one, so let me just show you that now. Across the bottom, where you've made the ones with the triangle, so not the square one but the triangle ones, all I want you to do is cut off a small piece. There's no measurement, it's just a small piece, so that when you come to fold it all together, it folds together a bit nicer. Okay, let me move that out of the way. All right, so I'm trying to make sure I haven't missed any steps for you. I don't believe I have. So the next thing I'm going to do, and now this is very much a personal choice step. You may or may not have a die that you like. You might have another way of doing what I'm about to do. So let me show you what I'm going to do now. I'm going to bring in my die cutting machine. This is just my little bug. Grab my plates, and a die that I have is a really nice, it makes a really nice little nameplate. So all I'm going to do is pop that in and run that through, and it's easier to see once I've cut it out. So run that through, pull it back, do that to the side, and all I want to do, because to save me having to go and do the embossing step now, all I'm going to do is, I know there's a bit there, so I'm just going to take an embossing tool, just one of the ball tools, and just run it over the part where I know is open on the other side. And that also helps that pop out a bit easier. So hopefully you can see where if I reflect that in and out of the light, hopefully you'll be able to see that. But there's just a small section here that, because I've embossed it, it really stands up. And this is what I meant by, if you were having a Christmas table or any kind of decorative table, you could use this as place settings. So I'm going to grab, excuse my arm right up in the camera there, I'm going to grab one of my nice fine liner pens, and I'm going to invite myself to this special event. There we go. And I've done that now because, again, I want you to decorate before you stick everything down. Okay, so I'm going to move that to one side. We're going to stick this final panel on. And I'm also going to turn my hot glue gun on, purely because it's the quickest way to stick the poinsettia together. Because although my wet glue is very good, it does take a little bit to grab. Not too long. But because there are 7 leaves in the red and then another 3, so there's 10 in total, I don't want it to take forever just to pop that down. Okay, the panel I've just stuck down, I know that this is my front panel. I know that this is where I'm going to position the decoration. So all I'm going to do is take the nameplate that I just did, and I'm going to sit it on the corresponding top piece, just like so. You could edge this if you have a die that, you know, you can matte and layer, because it would look nice with a little black line behind it. Let me just show you that. Just a little bit of black to frame it. That would look really nice. But I'm just going to leave it as it is, so it stands out. I'm going to grab my wet glue and just stick this down. Just try and get it straight. Lovely. Okay, so the next step I'm going to do is stick the box together, because although I want you to decorate it before you put the box together, I mean mostly just the panels, because it's easier to put them down and get them to stick while it's all on flat. So all I'm going to do is turn it over and start folding this up like so. And this is what we're looking for, the solid square piece to be on the bottom, giving a nice neat finish. So with that in mind, I'm just going to take this third one along from the square this side, and I'm just going to put a little bit of adhesive on here. Nothing major, but just so that this will stick to this. Trying to do it so that I have an idea of it all going to be nice and square once I'm done. Okay, and just hold that in place for a moment, then open it back out again, and on the next panel here, again, just another little bit of adhesive, and fold the next piece over. Again, remember to take a minute to make sure that it is going to be square still at the end. Yeah, that's fine. So hold that in place. And then the final one we're going to do is the square piece. But we're not going to do that just yet because we're going to close the sides in first. So a little bit on this one. Line it up on the inside. And kind of just get your finger in there and hold it in place. It won't take very long. It's a quick dry glue, and it does grab fairly quickly. I know I'm going to be using my hot glue for the decoration, but that's pretty much caught. And then again on the tab at the top, just line it up nicely and hold it for a few seconds. Oops. Not to let it slide. And that should be enough. And then the final square panel on the bottom, just gonna give that a nice surface area to stick onto, and just get that on. Turn the whole thing over and rest it down, and I'm just going to take my ball tool and I'm just going to push that together so that all the glue is captured. Yep, that seems okay. Just give it another few seconds, make sure it is done properly. Okay, so we are almost done. So bringing it so that we have the nameplate at the front. I'm going to grab the embellishments that I've already created and start putting this together. So I'm taking the green out first. I'm going to grab my wet glue for these because these are the first layer. So just a bit of glue on there, and let's just decorate this up. Remembering that you can't have it hanging off the bottom because obviously it won't sit flat then. Okay, so I guess you there. Now I know they look really skew with, but it's okay because the red part's going to cover that all up. Okay, so just grabbing my hot glue, I'm going to just start placing these on. So one just there. Remember, because you're creating this yourself, if you don't have enough, you can always just add a few more in. Do be very careful with the hot glue. I did stick my finger in it earlier on today. It was not too bad because it had cooled ever so slightly, but it did make me, well, I did shout a little bit. I won't tell you what I said. Might have been just a little bit rude. But in my defense, I had just burnt myself. Okay, so I'm just going to add 2 more in. So one here. And the final one, I think I'm just going to add here. Excuse me. And then I've got a little adhesive gem, and all I did was I've just popped that into the Versamark, and dipped my finger into my rich gold embossing powder and embossed it, just so that it all tied in together. This is a self-adhesive gem, but I'm not going to trust that, and I am going to pop a little bit of hot glue just in the middle of the flower here, and very carefully drop that on top, and then use my tweezers to put it exactly where I want it. There we go. I'm just going to turn my glue off and move that out the way, since I have proven to myself I'm a little bit clumsy today. And that is essentially finished. Now there's two steps you can do should you want to. One is you can add some ribbon to this and tie it and have the ribbon poking round, or if I've done this right, it should just sit on itself like so. But how cute is that for your Christmas table? But as I said, it's not just Christmas table. Let me show you the other samples that I've done. I created a wedding one where I have added the ribbon. Look at me, I'm very popular. I'm going to all these parties. And I have created like a Halloween one as well. So this is just a die I had. This was using my Alphabet 1 stamp set. And I just took white flowers that were already pre-made and I coloured them in to give them some more of a Halloween finish. And I created the spider using the stems of the flower that I cut away. So there's the Halloween one. And this is more the wedding type one. I used Textures 1 here in a copper after creating a background in exactly the same way with the oxides, and just did the Textures 1 dots in copper to look like champagne bubbles fizzing up from the bottom. An organza and a satin ribbon tied together to make it very, very pretty. Some flowers that kind of tied all the colours in. And yeah, so that is that. I'm really pleased with this. I'm hoping that the measurements don't put you off giving this a try. Or if you have got a cracker die, you might be able to adapt it to create the standing boxes. And hopefully I've inspired you in a way to decorate them. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this. As I said, I will put the information across my social media. You can find me on Facebook and Insta. All that information will be underneath this video. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.